Hi, and welcome back to Continual Fandom. Tonight, we are diving into one of my favorite books and a series coming from it. It is nothing other than Good Omens. I'm your host, Jim Nettles. So, we have pulled in a whole bunch of volunteers to come in tonight to decide the sides of the light and the dark. So, Marlena, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Marlana Cockcroft. I write fantasy and sometimes horror, probably largely inspired by reading Neil Gaiman's work. I've been a fan of his since I was 18 when I discovered Sandman. I've owned this copy of Good Omens, and it's really beat up since the 90s. And I love the book, and I love the show, and I'm happy to talk about it.
Doc?
I am Doc Coleman, and I write steampunk comedy adventure. And I have to admit that I have not been a big reader of Gaiman or Pratchett, but I've had them highly recommended to me. I've read a couple things, but I was very interested when the series came out and enjoyed it immensely.
Stuart?
Hi, everyone. I'm Stuart Jaffe. I'm best known for the Max Porter Paranormal Mysteries. I write lots of science fiction and fantasy. And I've not read Good Omens either, but definitely have seen both seasons, and I've read both gentlemen's work before. So there you go.
Hansi?
I'm Hansi Oppenheimer or Crowley.
Hey, Crowley!
And I'm a visual artist and a cosplayer. And I love the show. I think it's just such a beautifully constructed world. And yes, Team Crowley, clearly.
Finally, somebody can follow the instructions. It is the apocalypse.
Sorry.
Leave it to the demon. My goodness.
Marisa.
Hi, I'm Maurice Wolf. I write science fiction and fantasy and all the little corners in between I can get my hands on. Like Marlena, I fell in love with Sandman when I was of the age to fall madly in love with something and become obsessed with it for, the rest of my life. And I own that same copy of Good Omens, but it's currently in storage. So I love the book. I love the show. I am team why not both. And that's I'm excited to talk about it. Yeah.
Well, probably being Team Crowley, but I'm fairly certain that's not a shocker to anyone.
Check out. Yeah.
And I have the exact same copy, but it's in the bedroom. I meant to bring it in here. It's not. But alas, because I'm going back through. So let's actually start with the book and kind of just, the work of both Gaiman and Pratchett, right? So if we kind of look at them and this merger of the two, I mean, this is, and I know everybody either loves or hates the book. I don't know anybody that kind of falls in the middle. I know. I don't know what to say. But Marlena, what kind of brought you to Good Omens specifically?
Just being a fan of Gaiman's generally. I can't even remember how I got the book. It's just been in my possession for so long. And then
Appeared.
It's always been there.
Right.
It was the 90s. It manifested. It could have. But I also love Hitchhiker's Guide, and it's so much in that vein that I just fell in love with the book instantly. It's so off the wall.
Doc, so I'll throw over to you because again, you haven't read it, but anything you wanted to kind of throw in there just on the creators themselves.
While I have not read extensively of them, they've both been highly recommended to me. I have read The Watch and learned the rule of boots. And I have read Neverwhere and learned that the underworld is not exactly what it looks like. But they're both.
Oh, go ahead, Doc.
They're both very creative authors with a unique look on things, and if you're someone like I was who's never read either of them, I recommend try the series, and if it resonates with you, then go ahead and seek out the books.
All right, now I'll save Doc for himself on that one, but I'm embracing my inner Crowley just to watch the struggle a little bit. So, Stuart.
All right. So I might as well get this all out of the way. So I have a love-hate thing with Gaiman. Like, I loved Sandman. I loved Coraline. I didn't like American Gods. Neverwhere I was kind of okay with. And I just, his prose just doesn't grab me. I get why a lot of people like it, but it usually didn't do it for me. The adaptations of his stuff, I think I've enjoyed more, with the exception of Sandman, which I love that adaptation as well, but it's pretty hard to beat the graphic novels of it, or comics, however you want to look at it. And then Pratchett is akin to South Park for me, in that whenever I see clips from South Park, I think they are hysterical, they're brilliant, they're poignant, they're thoughtful, they are multi-leveled, and then I go watch the show and I'm like, what is this crap? This is not, how did that come from it? And it's the same thing. Pratchett, I see people put quotes up all the time and I read them. I'm like, this is incredible. This is brilliant. It's thought provoking and funny as hell. And then I've read the first couple of Discworld and I'm just like, where is all that? Because it ain't here. So I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I'm glad. I totally get why people are so into them. And I say everything I said not to diss them at all. I have tremendous respect for them. But weirdly, I get more out of the adaptations, the television and film adaptations than their particular books, which is kind of opposite for the way I am with most books. But there you go. Crucify me if you want. I'm Team Crowley.
Nancy?
Yeah, I kind of ambivalent about the book, actually. And I've read, separately their work and enjoyed it. I actually like the book American Gods better, but this adaptation, I think, is the best adaptation I've seen of Gaiman's work.
Marisa?
I, fell in love with Neil Gaiman's work at the age where I made it my whole personality, basically. So, Good Omens came out and I read it and I loved it. And I also relied on the library and a used bookstore in my hometown for all of my reading needs. So I had yet to discover Terry Pratchett. So I was one of those backwards people who got into Terry Pratchett because of Neil Gaiman and Good Omens. But I was still of the age to fall madly in love with Discworld, although I've still only read maybe 5 of the 41 books. But I did just secure a humble
5.
Yeah, I mean,
I just picked up the Humble Bundle too.
I did. I just got the Humble Bundle. And so now I have like 39 of them and no time to read them, but I'm so excited. So I loved the book. For somebody who loved Hitchhiker's Guide as much as I did, like I love that came up already. It really hit that sweet spot of like funny, but more going on underneath. And so, yeah, I loved it.
So let's actually dive into the story, of the book, season 1, kind of that full arc. And Doc, I'm going to throw this to you for this one. Looking at the story, and I think that it is a very faithful adaptation, even more so than a lot of the time you see for a lot of things. So Doc, just overall, how are you for season 1?
For season 1, the nonlinear storytelling was very interesting and took a bit at times because sometimes they would shift time periods and it wasn't immediately obvious. So that was very different, but it was the two main actors were absolutely brilliant. I know there's some people say that Tennant is always brilliant, but they really embraced the characters fully, and of course then you've got the humor, which it's like people have said is very Hitchhiker's Guide in that it tries to explain the universe, which is kind of inherently inexplicable.
Ineffable.
ineffable. um,
Stuart, how about you? You know, looking at the season one, that first arc.
Well, for me, I mean, frankly, it's the same answer season one or season two, because for me, what makes the series, and I would imagine the books themselves work as well, is it's their relationship together that's somewhere between brotherly love and romantic love, and the way they pull that tightrope walk is uh, just incredible. And I mean, you really, I'm sure we will talk about the actors a lot. The casting of those two actors, the casting of those two roles had to be so carefully done, because you needed actors who can do multiple levels of acting with just a look, and they really pull that off a lot. And yeah, but for me, some of the best scenes are the two of them on a park bench and just talking to each other about something seemingly innocuous, but you're realizing that they care about each other despite everything. And yeah, it's always those kind of moments more than the end of the world stuff, which, I mean, is fun, but you know.
Never let a good end of the world go to waste. So
except they
Hansi,
did. No.
huh?
Except they did let the end of the world go to waste. So.
Well, that's because you can't spoil that bottle of wine. So Hansi, how about you? What were your thoughts on book season one, just kind of overall?
I love their relationship, and those two actors, Jesus Christ, like especially like after watching like staged and stuff where you see like, obviously that is also a performance of them, but it's much closer. And to see the Michael Sheen in staged and realize he's a Xerophil, it's like, oh my God, like that's insane transformation of your entire person. Like, and Ten's just always great to watch. His snarky and snaky hips and his like little snarky witticisms. Like, it's so well written too. Like the scenes on the park bench, they're just so entertaining. Never mind the apocalypse. We just want to see these two guys hang out and have fun together.
Marisa?
I mean, they're my favorite parts of the book too, right? And so, to everyone's point, the casting, goodness, thank God. I mean, I love the story of like, what if the Antichrist was raised by just like the most normal of middle class English parents, who's like, you know what? I like the world, so no thanks. Like the whole story was great. It was set up great. The them were great. And child actors are children, so that can be hit or miss, but I thought they all did a great job. I can't remember them at all. I only remember Crowley and Aziraphale, so no wonder we got a season 2, right? Like, I remember when they announced it, I was like, I mean, okay, but what are we gonna? Oh, we're just gonna focus on them. Yep, I'm in. Let's go, rage. So yeah, I thought they did a great job adapting the story. I thought the story was great to begin with, and that casting really, really pushed it up. And I think also having Neil Gaiman involved, right? And he is so publicly and clearly, genuinely dedicated to Terry Pratchett's memory. So like I would say he probably worked even extra hard on this one, not to take away from his other projects, but because it mattered so much that Terry Pratchett wasn't there. And I felt that love, I guess, in the show, and I really loved it.
I wish more television producers would learn this lesson, because it certainly was true in this show. The adaptation of The Expanse, which used one of the two authors extensively, and even Game of Thrones until it didn't use Martin. I mean, those are 3 great examples of just, not that the author is going to change everything, but I think it helps keep things focused on understanding what is actually important to the adaptation.
Yeah. Shadow and Bone, that the author was really involved in that one too.
In what?
Shadow and Bone.
Shadow and Bone.
Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And no, Joe Lansdale was real involved the first season of Hap and Leonard, and the actors, especially for James Purfoy and stuff, just getting that accent down, was important to have Joe there, and
right.
He even showed him some of his moves.
Marlena, how about you? What just general thoughts on the first season?
So I was rereading the book, and I'm struck actually all over again by how many scenes were not in the book, but that were in the TV series that made total sense in the TV series. Just all the expansion of the Aziraphale and Crowley relationship. Like this, wow, this fitted so seamlessly. This is great, and echoing about the perfection of the casting. They're so good, and I got such life out of when season 1 first came out, and back when Twitter was functional. I would follow Neil Gaiman on Twitter, and he would just retweet all of these photos of people cosplaying as the ineffable husbands, and it was so cute. It was just the most adorable thing, and I loved it. But I think one of my favorite scenes, and I love all the scenes with the two of them, but I think one of my favorite scenes in season 1 is Crowley driving the car on fire. That was the best visual, and it was funny in the book, but it was so much funnier to watch it.
And he's talking to the car. I believe you. You're not going to go on fire. I love the way he talks to his plants too, like "Grow, damn you!"
And that was in the book, but it was so much funnier to see Tennant doing it. Grow that up. The poor plant.
Grow better. And then he puts the other plant in the garbage disposal, and the plants are all shaking as you're scared.
Could I try that? Would that work for mine?
I couldn't do that to my plant.
Walk over. I'm just going to tear a leaf off.
Slowly,
very slowly. So I do want to kind of hit on that notion, because I mean, there were things to it that I found that were straight from the book. The Witchfinder arc, all of that was, I thought, captured a lot of that sense of humor. The slaughter at the nunnery, and just all of that, and the paintball match that becomes World War III. There were aspects to that brought out that absurdity to balance out those just moments of, standing at the gates and going, you lost the sword. Really?
It was a big bloody sword. It was fighting all over the place.
So Stuart, is there a favorite scene for you that really kind of cemented the first season? No. I know. Like asking for that favorite child.
No, I mean, I don't mean that. I said that flippantly a second ago, but it's this show strikes me as one of those that is more than the sum of its parts kind of a thing. And I mean, I know we're going to keep coming back to it. The actors really are the what does it. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen the first season. The second season, which is more fresh in my mind, even that, where I can picture many of the moments and the specific actors who were all wonderful, but it really is, the David Tennant, Michael Sheen show. That's their show, and everything else is just the flavor of the episode, the monster of the week almost. So yeah, that's the thing for me.
Nancy?
Cemented. Nanny Crawley. Nanny Crawley is like the best thing ever. And like one day I want to cosplay Nanny Crawley. I just that for me, that was like, okay, now I'm in. Also, at one point, Aziraphale says to him, like, I don't love you. David Tennant. Crawley's like, oh, you do. It's so obnoxious. I just relate so much.
Marisa?
So apparently I just share a brain with the other panelists. So yes, it was Nanny Crowley. Like, it was the whole vibe, right? The whole vibe, I was into it. The way the cast and everyone was talking about it leading up to it, I was already bought in. Like, I was predisposed to love it. But then Nanny Crowley walks up to the stately mansion, and it's not played for laughs. Like, I just recently saw some like snapshot of somebody's Tumblr post. So God bless you, Tumblr poster. But it's basically like, this was not played for laughs. This isn't like ha ha ha, male actor dressed as woman, he he he. It was like, nope, Crowley is here. Crowley is the nanny. Crowley is going to raise the Antichrist. And then it all falls apart. But the joke is that it all falls apart, not that David Tennant is dressed in a dress. And you don't always have those subtle moments of affirmation as a lady nerd. And that was huge. And I realized, thanks to that very insightful Tumblr poster, that was part of it, like part of that moment of like, we're taking this story seriously and silly things are going to happen, but it's not, it's not the easy laugh. It's the good.
Like, and you know, they're angels. Like, what is gender?
Gender? Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
Marlena, for you, is there something for you?
I mean, there's a lot. I think the montage of seeing the two of them throughout the centuries, which is not so much in the book, but it helps to expand on the relationship in a fun way. And you kind of see that growing friendship, and you see where Crowley got the holy water from. And it helps expand not just on the story, but on the depth of the characters. So you kind of believe the relationship more.
Doc?
There are certain things that stick out in my mind, like when they're in Victorian times and dealing with the grave robbers, and deciding, is like, are we going to do anything about this, or we're just going to let it go? Or and the other thing that comes to mind is actually the Antichrist playing with the hellhounds in the woods. But I found it amusing that we were talking so much about Azrael and Crowley, and it's like, but the book is about the prophecies, the most true and accurate prophecies ever, and the descendant of the witch that has to deal with all this. And it's like, how does she get forgotten in all that?
Yeah, although it's funny because I rewatched the first season today, and I remember her having a much bigger part.
Mm-hmm.
Rewatching, and I was like, "Wow, she's not in that much of it,"
Okay.
Yeah, and that was one of those pieces for me. Is in the first season is you only get the prophecies for those hints where you need them, right? There's certain ones that they dropped out from the book, and I think there's a few aspects there, but I mean, it's a glue. Right. So if we then look and move into season 2, because if you've read the book, you had a pretty good idea what to accept out of season 1. And if there was anything out of season 1 that actually felt light for me, it was the ending, the blown apocalypse. Mm. Because it sort of all came in, oh, I guess it's going to fizzle out. I guess we're all going to be okay. Go your merry ways. So looking at the fact of season 2, because again, there wasn't a book to be building from, there wasn't a story to be running from, but you always knew at the end of book 1, there's always going to be the next apocalypse. That's part of the general setup. This is just that deferral. So Hansi, for you, what was it to get to see that notion of the second part of the story, that continued, and really that next part of the relationship?
Well, it was really interesting because at this point, Crowley has decided, he's in love with him, and Aziraphale is like, doesn't seem to get it, and when you see John Hamm and Beelzebub, making a relationship, and Crowley's just like, we can have that. And, in desperation, he grabs him and kisses him. And it's so heartbreaking because it's such a desperate kiss. And of course, the person who's not aware that we're having a thing is like, what the heck? So it's just really touching. And I now I know for the third season where we're going to go. We're going to get those two back together somehow.
Marisa?
I loved the leaning in of the war. Like, you just get a little bit of it in the first book, and you get some of it in the first season of like the Cold War and how it plays out, the ineffable plan. So I loved getting to see more of it in action. I again think the casting was great. The woman who played Beelzebub was delightful. John
Great.
Hamm is very John Hamm. And so it was great. And I actually feel like Aziraphale knew dang well that he was in love with Crowley. He just didn't think Crowley loved him back because there was the whole like ball thing and he asked him to dance. Like, I think he knew his feelings. I don't think he believed Crowley's feelings. And then
I don't think he was ready for a declaration, especially because he still sees himself as part of like, you know, heaven and this mission. And so it just wasn't the right time for him.
Yeah. And then it was very much like
opposites.
Yeah.
Like,
it was
in terms of, you know, Crowley would never have done this ball and gone through all the detail that he went through for Crowley.
Right.
So I think sometimes I think from the first book too, or the first season, as they express themselves to each other, they're missed messages all the time. Yeah, exactly.
Very much. Because Aziraphale, like, he's making hard eyes the whole time. And that could be a Michael Sheen decision or not. It's just his face. I don't know. But they're hard eyes the whole time. But like, as it gets like realer and realer, like, the car loves Aziraphale, you know, like I think like the moment he has the chance to save Crowley, like, but no, you were never really a demon. That's why it's okay that I love you. So now I can pull you back to the side of the angels and not actually seeing the problems with heaven that exist in the show. I loved it because it was like actual earned character truth. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much, and it gave me a lot of confidence for season 3. Because for season 2, I was like, I don't care, I'm just here for the ride. Like, I don't have high expectations, but I'm ready for the party. And it was so good that like I'm extra excited for 3.
Marlena?
Man, I am glad they renewed that show because after watching,
because we riot.
You cannot end it like that. My God. I was puzzled at first. Like, there's no book now. Where are we going with this? But I love focusing on the characters. I also love perpetually in most seasons the depiction of heaven as being this completely stuffy, incompetent bureaucracy, and hell is this completely messy, incompetent bureaucracy, and that seems right on both counts, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think the two of them already do kind of know they have feelings for each other. I think Aziraphale just has a sense of duty still that Crowley doesn't anymore. And this is why I didn't declare a team, by the way, because I can't. I was like, I'm more aligned with Aziraphale. I'm definitely like goody two-shoes, but I completely agree with Crowley on this. Like, yeah, he's right. Walk away from both. They're both bad. So,
yeah.
I wasn't deliberately breaking the rules.
Doug?
Well, it's not like there's a team Crowley and a team Aziraphale. They're the same team. It's all about getting them together. But what I loved was that all through the first season you had the music. Every day it's getting closer, and that was all about the apocalypse in the first series. And then it's like, okay, second series, we've averted the apocalypse. It's not coming. And the music is still there. And what the heck is going on? And the fact that they notice it's there and it's always there was like very meta. Is like, is this another apocalypse? What's going on? And the fact that they took it and they took it from something that was very huge and catastrophic, the apocalypse, to something that, you know, seemed like it was slightly smaller, but still bad, you know, a second war between heaven and hell, and then revealed it to be very personal stakes for a couple characters. And a part of me is kind of wondering, it's like, are they going to bring that song back all through season 3?
I'm sure they'll find another apocalypse.
They paid the rights for it. They're going to milk that thing.
We've got the rights. We don't have to pay for them again. So,
well, you know, 3 is a magic number. Stuart, you know, how about for you for season 2?
So, the thing about season 2 that actually just amazes me is that between Gaiman and whoever else, all the other writers of all the episodes, that they actually pulled off a season 2 that still sounds like Pratchett was somewhere involved, and of course he can't be. So, and that's I think, I was talking earlier about how I perceive the differences between the two authors and my own feelings towards them. One of the things a bunch of you mentioned Hitchhiker's Guide, which I always akin more towards the Pratchett side of things. His humor tends to be more of that joke, serious thing, kind of almost like a Monty Python skit, whereas Gaiman is funny, but much more serious in what he's trying to accomplish, and which is why I think they blend so well together. And I was really wondering whether they would lose some of the more, for lack of a better word, zany aspects that Pratchett would have brought to a story. And I was glad to see that was not the case, that they still had such a great balance of those two personalities, even though only one of them is around to work on it.
One of my favorite things, just real quick on that, is a couple of times in interviews, both of them said, nobody has it quite right which of us wrote which thing. And like my co-authorships are not quite on the level of a Neil Gaiman, Terry Pratchett situation, but it's also been very similar. Like I find that when you write with somebody else, your styles will blend in a way you didn't quite expect. And so I will be more X in writing with somebody than I might be on my own. And so I do wonder, like, we have no way of knowing for sure. I don't think Neil Gaiman's going to tell us, but like, I do wonder if some of the funny was actually him stepping up his game to like match energy with Terry Pratchett. So when I see things like that in the second season, like I know they had notes for potential sequels, so that's cool. But also like, I wonder how much of it is him like, okay, channel that young guy you were when you wrote with Terry Pratchett, trying to crack Terry Pratchett up. So
I think it's kind of a factor of they worked so closely together while writing the book that that Neil is then not writing for him and for Terry, but he's writing in the voice of the two of them together.
Oh, that's a sweet
and because he knows that voice now.
So Marisa, I'm going to throw this piece at you because we've talked a lot about the relationship between the two of them, right? Because I mean, really, in a lot of ways, it's a romance. The fact that the apocalypse ties it together is just kind of convenient, to make it all the way through, and it's romance to romance that, like you were talking about, that brotherly love. But I think there's also the kind of adversarial love in this too, because again, they're on both sides. You get a little bit of that whole Romeo and Juliet kind of feel of, except for the fact they've known each other for a little longer than a weekend, before trying to kill each other. So what is it really, when you compare their relationship to so many of the others we see in fiction and the way it develops over millennia, and that notion of starting at the beginning of time and standing there going, oh, wow, what do you know? Yeah, I did that over there. Up to the, oh, yeah, Poodles, you're the one responsible for that. What is it for you with the relationship, how it's built, and really is being the foundation story?
Yeah, I mean, they're soulmates, right? Like they bring out something in the other that the setting they're in doesn't allow for. Like on their own, they wouldn't be who they are. So I feel like Crowley is very much an idealist, showcased early on when he's making Nebula. And they're so beautiful. And he's like, what do you mean it's getting shut down and whatever? He's like, I just spent all this time making this. No. And then he asks a question, he gets cast down for that, right? Like he's an idealist. He believes in humanity. He believes in the beauty of life and earth. And from the beginning, Aziraphale is, oh no, I lost the sword because they were so cold. They needed something and it was on fire. Like, here, we helped. Like, he was always undercutting. He was always a rebel. He was just very innocent, sweet about it, and didn't actively question, potentially because he saw what happened to Crowley, potentially because of who he is with his little hard eyes. But I love that, like, Aziraphale, the angel, is a little bit of the rebel, and Crowley, the demon, is the idealist. And you wouldn't, I don't think, see those traits in the other as much without the like. This is not a sex thing. Just like, I just realized this, dude. It's like
they are angels. You never know.
You never know. I don't know how it's ineffable. But like the friction of their constant interaction with each other and their shared love for Earth and humanity and life, despite what seems like the uncaring machinery of heaven and hell. So I love them. I feel like they are not soulmates and like they were destined to be together, but soulmates in that they've kind of like fitted themselves to each other over millennia.
Marlena?
I mean, I think that they seem like such opposites and they play off each other so well, but also they're both clearly smarter than their coworkers. And
right.
I think that might be the thing that they actually have in common is that they've both been on Earth long enough to understand how things actually work, and everyone back in heaven and back in hell is like, oh yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And so this perpetual centuries long, I don't want to say con job, and maybe I do, that both of them are pulling back on the home office and getting away with it. And I think that helps bring them closer together. And that's very entertaining to watch. If you've ever had a bad boss.
I might have learned some of what I know about management from the books. So Doc, how about for you?
So I think it's kind of interesting that they kind of fall in love with the creation first. And then they fall in love with each other because of their mutual appreciation of the creation. And the way it's depicted is like all the other angels and demons are all, the angels are all about the plan, and the demons are all about being bad. But when Azrael and Crowley come to Earth, they like do their missions and they hang out, and they're not in a hurry to go back and report. In fact, it's like, I've got to report in, what a drag, I'll see you in a little while. And it's like they tend to spend as little time as possible in their respective spheres, while all the other angels and demons spend all of their time either in heaven or hell and only come to Earth for particular missions, do them or fail them, and then go right back. It really sets them apart in terms of, they're the only ones who are actually looking around and seeing what's here.
Well, it's part of the Cold War spy aspect of it, right? It's that sit on the park bench and swap a few secrets. Stuart?
When it comes to their romance, so in romance novels, there are a lot of them are written in that the two people who are coming together have feelings for each other, but neither recognizes it in the other. And it's a lot of how many obstacles can we put in their way till they finally, somebody dares to say it to the other. But here, what they've done is, if you really think about it, they know exactly how each other feels. We talked about it earlier that I forget whether this was during this panel or before the panel started, where we said they were very much the same kind of character, just from different angles. So they know they're in love with each other, but because of the way, so Crowley's sitting there saying, "I know he feels this way. He just needs to say it clearly to me." And then when he does say it, it's unclear because they don't express things the same way. And just like we were talking about earlier, how the heaven and hell are really both just inefficient bureaucracies, but they're expressed very differently. Both of these are exactly the same. They're both in love with each other the same way. Everything's the same. They just express it differently. And that expression is the thing that keeps screwing everything up for them, because they just can't figure out that, they're like, I thought I knew what the heck was going on, but what does that mean? And then we go off onto, 100 years later, we'll try again. So I think that's one of the kind of really brilliant things that for me makes it, I was about to say unique. It's been done before in romance, but it's not as commonly done because it's certainly difficult to pull off. And I think they do it very, very well here.
Honestly,
yeah. I mean, I was thinking about like so early in the show when they're seen, in the Garden of Eden, and it starts to rain, and one of them puts his wing around the other, and then in the second season they started to. Like suddenly the plants, Crowley's plants were in the bookshop, and, you started seeing them melding together, only to be broken apart at the end. But they do seem to be, becoming one in some way.
So I do want to throw out here, Marlene, I'll start with you on this one. That notion of John Hamm and to an extent here of heaven being thrown to earth, and kind of that backwards way of let's start it all over again. That aspect of the story, what were your thoughts on kind of how they played that through?
Wait, I think I'm not understanding how he
just
got
that part of the story.
The question, please.
Just that part of the story, right? That notion of throwing in what was somewhere between a third wheel and having a child.
Oh. That worked way better than I thought. Yeah, it was like they had a child. That was pretty entertaining. I mean, John Hamm is shockingly entertaining in everything he does. But yeah, and having him be this completely different sort of Gabriel and watching them both try to relate to him in different ways, and Crowley really not wanting any part of him because of his last memories of Gabriel. And no, I liked that. I thought that really it introduced mystery and comedy at the same time. So,
Doc?
I really like the basically the erased Gabriel of trying to rediscover the universe from scratch.
That was really funny.
I kind of miss the fact that we didn't really have a parallel arc with Beelzebub, but which I think would have made it more entertaining. But it probably would have just been too suspicious to have the number
have
one
scenes, where they like once a year, right? They'd meet for dinner and like.
Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah, but
if you did that, then you'd have those paralleling, but you also have the coffee shop storyline paralleling. It would have been a lot of paralleling.
Yeah,
I've been too much.
So, Stuart, anything else you want to add to it?
I think back to the earlier in this conversation when we were talking about how perfectly cast the show was for the two main characters and how that was crucial. And it really didn't occur to me until just a moment ago that like I can't think of anybody else but John Hamm who could have really pulled off. And I mean, he really has to step up and be as good as the other two actors. And there are plenty of good actors, but he had to do it in a way that he was also playing two different characters, because you have one that's, I mean, a complete, and the same person, obviously, but different, just, different time
Gabriel
history
and erased Gabriels.
Yeah, so. Erased Gabriel. So yeah, it's, and he's also playing, he's playing the instigation of everything. He's playing the comic relief of a lot of the scenes. He's playing a villain of a lot of the seats all in one. I mean, the more I think about it, that role is ridiculously difficult to pull off.
And a romantic lead on top
and he
of
makes it look easy. So,
Well, thankfully they gave him a small box to help carry it with. So, Hansi, how about you?
What's the question at this point?
Well, just kind of that Gabriel arc, right?
Oh, I thought it was really fun. I mean, yeah, and it was a surprise, I mean, when the meeting was really cool, and then that they had a relationship was really cool, and I liked it. I thought they were in it just enough to make it interesting, but not to sideline, Crowley's and Aziraphale's story.
So now I'm going to kind of hop to what is probably the hard part. Season 3. What do we think is coming? If you guys wanted to prognosticate, so Doc. Other than I think we'll see somehow or another our loving couple reunited, and it feels so good.
I think we're going to have definitely a hint at another kind of apocalypse coming up. Although it's definitely going to be definitely going to be interesting to start off with the characters as separated as possible, doing their own things and see what's going to draw them together. But I think I have the feeling that we're going to have that song running again, and which of course now everyone's going to say, "Oh, I know what this means. It means they're getting together at the end of the season." And that might be it. That we might find them getting together and then moving off into their own new universe to make something new. I don't know. I hope we get more of the car.
That's the important.
All right.
Turtles. Lots of turtles. I don't know. They could be anything. That's the
Discworld universe.
Well, I was about to say it makes again. It's kind of like the hitchhiker Pratchett aspect is that literally you could just go about anywhere with this story as long as the characters are being true. Any amount of insanity can happen, and it's all about how they react to it as individuals and together. So my first question, if I was going to actually try and predict this, is does anybody know, is this the final season or is there going to be more? Because if it's a final season, they literally might end the world and have to just the two of them try and start over. Who knows?
I would bet that this is the final season. I'd not look to see, but
yeah.
That would make sense.
If it is the final season and they know it's the final season, there's a slight chance of some version of a happily ever after that we might get. But beyond that, I don't know. Turtles.
And you mentioned turtles, and he mentioned Discworld, and my next thought was they're going to get together, they're going to move into their own dimension, and they're going to build Discworld.
It could be the crossover.
I'm sure there's a fanfic like that.
Probably.
Hansi, what are your thoughts?
I'm really curious if we're going to get them to kiss, because almost all the other shows I love have queer baited, except for Our Flag Means Death, which kind of got chopped, and I'm really bitter about it. But I just wonder if they'll have the courage to do that, because they should. I mean, and we'll see. I hope they have the courage to do that.
Marisa?
Not just another fake out.
So I was going to say in this last round, how much I loved the parallel between John Hamm and the just fish out of water angel who came down to ride herd and look for Gabriel. I hope we get more of her.
She was great.
She was great. She was such a delight. So I would love to see the corrupting in giant quotes influence of Earth on more angels and more demons. I think that would be delightful. I think it would be super fun to watch Aziraphale slowly become not disillusioned, but like a realistic view of Earth, like or of heaven, like actually see, since he's going to be like the man behind the mirror, like see the strings and the problems, and understand them, and therefore understand Crowley a little better. I feel like he kind of has to earn Crowley back at this point. So I think watching like another angel slowly get corrupted by Earth, and him slowly like get to like really understand the trade-offs of heaven, and then realize, holy crap, Crowley and that car were the best things that ever happened to me. Let me get back to my bookshop immediately and live with my ineffable husband for the rest of the time. I think that would all be really delightful. I'm sure there'll be another apocalypse, though. I am sure part of Aziraphale realizing that heaven isn't all it's cracked up to be is going to be heaven actively working to like, well, we did this, it was great, shut it down.
And maybe him going to Crowley saying, "These are the plans." This,
help. Yes. Yeah.
That part of the conversation always makes me think of Buffy asking, what is the plural of apocalypse?
Oh,
Right?
yeah, exactly.
Every time. Yeah.
I was thinking of that too.
It's a good one.
Marlena?
I mean, yeah, I guess the world is going to at least threaten to end again. But I think Crowley has spent so much time saving Aziraphale, or trying to save Aziraphale. I think this time it is Aziraphale's turn to save Crowley, somehow or other, as he very quickly gets tired of his new job. I kind of hope we see some of the people from season 1 again and season 2. I hope they find a way to bring them more of the characters back, because they always were integral to the cast. They always were fun as well. I don't know beyond that. I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited to see which classic rock song they bring out this time.
I love it.
Carry on, Wayward Son. No, wait, that's fantastic.
Supernatural.
That's supernatural. That's
It's been claimed.
So I'm one last round. So Stuart, yeah, because there's a lot of things to talk about within the story. But is there one thing we haven't talked about at all tonight that you want to get out there?
If I want to get it out, but we could.
Well,
we really haven't talked
Try
about.
it out, I mean.
Well, with season 2, we haven't talked about the actual. I mentioned earlier the coffee shop, and that paralleling them, but we really haven't talked about any of those aspects. I mean, obviously, from the beginning, we've all said that it's really about the two. These two guys, but there are other characters, there are other storylines going on, and I think like the coffee shop is a good example, because that's kind of the main B storyline of the piece, and I'm also impressed with the writing of that given less time to work with them, and they don't get to go back in time for hundreds of years to build up characters and all this. They just really get a few moments together, and dealing with some really odd, weird things happening to them, and yet we still get something out of it. It's not obviously not gonna. They don't have enough time to build a strong a relationship, but I don't know. I'm just curious what other people think of that.
Honestly, is there something for you that we haven't dove onto?
I just want to say that I tried to cosplay as Aziraphale and failed miserably. Like, somebody asked me if I was a Statue of Liberty, and I had like a flaming sword, and is the wiring's being repaired right now, but it lights up. So, God damn it, I paid $200 for the sword. I'm using it, so I'm Crowley, and I'm doing this shtick at all the cons. Like, have you seen my husband? He's so forgetful. As long as I can have fun in the story, I'm good with it.
Marisa?
I enjoyed the coffee shop, record shop ladies. I like that they didn't instantly like fall in love and run off to the sunset. I thought that was beautiful. And well done. And so, yeah, I hope, like Marlena said, I hope they come back in season 3 too. I mean, mostly I want that doofy angel. I love her a lot. But we can have like the shopkeepers I think there's a lot of fun stories to be told with the shopkeepers on that street. And just like especially as, you know, Crowley maybe moves into the bookshop and now we can meet all of these shopkeepers through him. I think that could be fun as he like picks up the bookseller thing. I don't have anything additional. Like I could just like rave about it all the time.
All I can say is you're responsible for the hors d'oeuvres at the next meeting. So
Having a ball. It's gonna be fun.
Marlena, anything you wanted to throw in an ad?
I just want to note that I passed on Good Omens fandom to the next generation. My 14-year-old is now also a giant fan of TV series, and they stole my book for a few months, and I eventually got it back. I actually backed the Kickstarter for the graphic novel specifically to give it to them. And they're like, is it done yet? Like, no, sorry. So I'm doing my part to pass on fandom.
Awesome.
Doc?
No, I can't really think of anything. I think we've kind of covered it.
Good job, us.
Well, now that we're bringing this world to an end, before we get out of here, let's make sure guys know where to find where y'all decide to end the world. Marlena, how about you? Website, social media, anything that anybody needs to go grab and pick up immediately?
Sure. So I've got a number of short stories published in anthologies and magazines, mostly down my head. And I just one of my middle grade manuscripts just won the Sidney Taylor Manuscript Award from the Association of Jewish Libraries. So that's in my month. And but for more information about me, you can find me on my website, which is marlenacockcroft.com. I'm sorry, it's hard to spell. And I am also on Blue Sky, and I'm still learning it. So that's a ND Croft. And please say hi.
Doc?
So if you're interested in learning more about me and my writing, you can go to your favorite search engine and search for Doc Coleman Steampunk, and that will take you to my Amazon author page where you can see samples of my books. It'll also help you find my website, doccoleman.com. And if you want to look for me on socials, I also have a link tree out there, which unfortunately they're Byzantine URLs I can never remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure if you find either of those other two, you'll find a link tree. And I've got a new short story that's going to be in an anthology from Eastbeck Books called A Cry of Hounds. Stories inspired by Sherlock Holmes, by The Hound of the Baskervilles, the Sherlock Holmes story, and that should be coming out in April.
Stuart?
You can find me at stuartjaffe.com. At my website, you can sign up for my mailing list and you'll get a free book and some short stories so you can try out my writing there. Or you can just take the plunge and go. You can find me on Amazon. Anywhere is not hard to find me. Social media, I tend to hang out on Facebook more than anything, and I have a fan group there called Stuart Jaffe's Madhouse. You're welcome to join there too.
Hansi?
I'm Hansi Oppenheimer, and my company is Squee Projects. I have a website, squeeprojects.com, and I'm Squee Projects on Insta and TikTok and X and Tumblr and all the other things. Yes.
Marisa?
That's adorable. I love it. I am at marisawolf.com or marisawolf.net. I go both ways. Or on Instagram, you can catch me at Book Dogs, where you will see my books and my dogs. It's very imaginative. And if you are up for potential apocalypses, will this work right in front of my face, maybe? Yeah. My debut solo novel is coming out from Baen February 6th. So by the time you see this, it should be out. It's called Beyond Enemies. It's a girl in her tank. My camera doesn't want you to see it, but you know it's good. The tagline is, sometimes the only way forward is to burn it all down. So a little bit of the energy of Good Omens in there. And I like to think I'm funny. So it's not as funny as Good Omens, but there are a couple of moments, I hope, that will make you laugh.
But it delivers on the apocalypse. But
the way of life is not the same at the end as it is at the beginning. We'll say that.
And you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentialsworkshops.com, creatingpros.com, and of course, your Continual. And we'll see you guys again soon. unless somebody does deliver that apocalypse.
It's only a little one.
Yeah, only a weak one, just but a scratch.